There's an uncomfortable truth, my dear ones, that many prefer to ignore. A statement that, in itself, is an invitation to the deepest reflection, and for some, a punch to the gut of complacency. I, Socrates, the old and persistent questioner from Athens, dare to utter it again. The unexamined life is not worth living. Have you ever paused to consider the weight and freedom these words carry? They are not a condemnation, but an urgent call to awaken from lethargy, from autopilot, from the superficial existence that many, without realizing it, embrace as destiny. If you feel there's something more, a truth waiting to be discovered within yourself and around you, and if the courage to look inward intrigues you, remain with me until the end of this dialogue. My provocations, sharpened by reason, will guide you on a path of self-knowledge that can truly transform your way of living and being. Before we delve deeper into this essential topic, please like this video, so the light of Socratic philosophy can illuminate and bless more minds that yearn for clarity and purpose. And follow this channel to receive more of my inquiries and challenges, which I guarantee you will help you build a more conscious life, and therefore a life more worth living. My dear citizens, the first thing we must understand about the unexamined life is that it hides in routine, in the daily repetition of acts without reflection. You wake up, eat, work, have fun, and sleep, repeating the cycle. But what is the purpose of all this? What are the reasons behind your choices? If you don't question yourself, if you don't investigate your own motivations, how can you claim that you are living and not just existing adrift, carried by someone else's current? True wisdom begins with the recognition of one's own ignorance. I know that I know nothing, I affirmed, and that was the basis of all my seeking. The unexamined life, on the contrary, assumes that one already knows enough, that there is nothing more to question. This is the most dangerous of illusions, for it closes the door to learning, to growth, and to the evolution of the soul. It is to be content with the shadows of the cave instead of seeking the light of the sun. Most people live under the yoke of others' opinions, of inherited beliefs, of values imposed by society or family. They do not stop to ask, is this truly true? Do I believe this? Is this my truth or someone else's truth? The unexamined life is the life of intellectual conformity, where individuality and autonomy of thought are sacrificed at the altar of convenience and social acceptance. When I state that such a life is not worth living, I am not saying it has no material or social value. It may even be successful in the eyes of the world. But a life without deep reflection is a life without soul, without essence, without the inner richness that comes from self-knowledge. It is like a beautifully bound book with blank pages, or a statue without the inner fire to animate it. Happiness, my friends, is not found in material possessions or in fleeting pleasures. True and lasting happiness is born from self-understanding, from the coherence between what you think, what you say, and what you do. The unexamined life, by not promoting this inner coherence, is doomed to an incessant search for something to fill the void, a search that will never be fully satisfied. The courage to examine oneself is the noblest of courage. It requires facing one's own shadows, acknowledging one's own mistakes, questioning one's own certainties. Many prefer the cowardice of ignorance, the comfort of illusion, the security of not disturbing what is already established. But true security lies in truth, however uncomfortable it may seem at first. And what is the role of dialogue in this examination of life? Fundamental. It is through conversation, through question and answer, through the clash of ideas that truth emerges. The unexamined life is isolated, monological, for it fears the questioning that can unmask its fragile foundations. Examination is a social exercise, a shared journey in search of clarity, of virtue. Think of men who let themselves be carried away by excessive passion, by wrath, by envy. If they do not examine the origin and nature of these feelings, if they do not question their reactions, How can they control them? The unexamined life is a slave to emotions, a hostage to impulses, without the rudder of reason to guide the ship of existence through the storms of the soul. Virtue, which I so sought to define and live, is not something innate or magical. It is the fruit of reflection, of the conscious choice of what is good, just, and beautiful. How can one be virtuous if they have never paused to think about what virtue is? The unexamined life is, therefore, a life without authentic virtue, merely with superficial imitations of what society considers good. The fear of ridicule, the fear of being different, the fear of being wrong. These are invisible shackles that bind the soul to the unexamined life. It is preferring others' approval to one's own freedom of thought. But I tell you, the disapproval of those who refuse to think is a compliment to those who dare to tread the path of truth and self-knowledge. The polis, the society in which we live, can only flourish if it is composed of thinking, critical citizens, capable of discernment and active participation in the pursuit of the common good. A democracy of slumbering minds is a paradox, an invitation to tyranny and manipulation. The examined life is the pillar of true freedom and social justice. Education, for me, was not the mere accumulation of information, but the awakening of the mind to the capacity to question, to investigate, to seek truth for oneself. An education that does not teach how to examine life is a farce, a mere training for conformity. Awaken your children to the beauty of inquiry, of constructive doubt. Many believe that wisdom is the privilege of a few, of the wise. But I tell you that the search for wisdom is a human vocation, accessible to all who dare to question their own existence. The unexamined life is the refusal of this vocation, an abdication of the greatest potential granted to you, the ability to reason and to transcend. The body may grow old and matter may decay, but the soul, if nourished by reflection and self-knowledge, becomes ever stronger, more luminous. The unexamined life is a life that neglects the soul, allowing it to atrophy in the darkness of ignorance. What is the point of caring so much for the body if the spirit that animates it wastes away for lack of light? The Oracle of Delphi proclaimed that no one was wiser than Socrates, and I understood that this meant I was the wisest because I recognized the vastness of my ignorance. One who refuses to examine life, on the other hand, lives in the false wisdom of one who thinks they know everything, and that is the true and deepest ignorance. Deep joy, the kind that is not shaken by external adversities, is a fruit of the inner peace that comes from coherence and understanding. The unexamined life, being devoid of this coherence, is always in search of external gratifications, of noises that muffle the absence of meaning, of distractions that prevent it from looking inward. My disciples, I do not invite you to a life of lamentations or pessimism, but to a life of courage and optimism founded on truth. The optimism of the unexamined life is a fragile illusion which crumbles at the slightest breath of reality. The optimism of the philosopher is robust, for it is born from the conviction that truth, however harsh it may be, always liberates. And how to begin to examine one's own life? By asking questions. Start with the simplest questions. Why do I do what I do? Why do I feel what I feel? What is truly important to me? What do I stand for, and why? Do not fear the answers, however unexpected they may be. They are the first steps on the journey of self-knowledge. Death, for me, was not an end to be feared, but a transition. How could I fear death if I dedicated my life to examining it, to examining existence itself? The unexamined life, on the contrary, dreads death, for it represents the end of an existence whose purpose was never truly understood, a play that ends without ever having been staged. May these words serve as a gadfly in your minds, stinging complacency and inertia. Do not forget to like this video so that the voice of philosophy can reach more hearts and awaken the thirst for truth. And follow this channel so that my future reflections may continue to guide you on this noble and ceaseless journey of examining life, and thus making it worth living.